So, the first article that the algorithm threw up for me this morning, and I loved it, was Michelle doesn't want to go to Barack's work thing, and that's her right. So, I think that was a perfect headline and a lovely article, satirical, but really saying that, hey, she didn't want to go to the inauguration, tough luck, she didn't go. But it also made me think about the workplace that we're entering now in 2025. Why does it suddenly feel like it's taking a nosedive in the first month itself? And all of this talk about masculinity and how we need more of it, what really is masculinity? I mean, there are many versions and different people have different takes, but fundamentally, when we talked about it from the, I don't know, caveman times, it was that, oh, the man went out to hunt and hence to provide for and to feed his family. And the woman stayed back in the cave and took care of the family and nurtured. So there was some kind of a team effort here, right? And he did play the role of caring for and protecting. But now, why does it feel like it's us versus them? Why does it feel so hostile? What's happening to the workplace? Hi, welcome to Small Talk Work Play Build. I'm Subha Chandrasekharan, a leadership and career growth coach, and I'm endlessly curious about how we can build meaningful careers in today's workplace and also enjoy ourselves while we do it.
Hi, I'm Hasita Krishna. I'm a brand consultant and co founder at Motley Crue. At heart, I'm a storyteller and I'm endlessly curious about the narratives and the patterns that shape our world today.
So, what makes us engage in small talk? I think we are really looking at the intersection of the workplace, the careers that we're building, the passion projects that we do want to pursue or at least discover that we like, and also build something meaningful of value to ourselves, to the world, and community around us.
For sure. And I think we kind of live in this space or this narrative that tells us that we have to be one thing at a time and that, a personal brand means just being two things and being them well, and the rest of it has to be hidden. Which worked for a very long time. But today, the world is a much more diffuse space, even if the platforms convince us otherwise. How do we show up as our whole selves and our true selves under every circumstance and in every conversation? That's the question that I'm really curious to
Yeah.
explore.
And I'm glad that after about 5 years of small talking, that's a milestone in itself. We are also trying to bring our authentic selves, go video, keep up with the trend, and be as real as we can.
Yeah, and that's the hope. I mean, you tell us how you're showing up. But in the meantime, just the journey, right, of coming to this place. Subha, for you and me, we started as colleagues. We did a lot of work together in the content space. Then we very organically explored a mentor mentee relationship, which continues to thrive to this day. We're also really good friends, and we find ourselves in similar life stages at various points in
Yeah.
time. You've played a huge role in the establishment of Motley Crue and where we are today. And I'm just kind of so fascinated by just what it takes to get to this point in the journey, because at one point this was two podcasts, and we had our wins and our very quiet, silent, sad losses on both these podcasts. And we started this almost as a pandemic project and a way for us, you and I, to connect at a
Yeah.
time when connection was not possible. And when we started with the first season of Small Talk, we didn't know what was coming for either one of us.
True.
So it's kind of very nice to look back and say, wow, half a decade of small
Whoa, that
talking.
sounds bigger than 5 years. But yeah, we've had some amazing guests who've supported us,
Yeah.
from a Supreme Court advocate to an AI expert who I last saw on the Davos screen, to a Wharton professor, and other business owners just building, like we say, meaningfully, step by step,
Yeah.
brick by brick. And it's been an honor to have those conversations, and hopefully, this season brings more of them, brings more of our banter, which I
Yes.
thoroughly enjoy. And I think it also, interestingly, we are so different and yet we are same.
Yes, that is true. Always
And I think
fascinates
all
me.
those stories will come up too. And I look forward to that.
Me too.
So, hope you enjoy our new season of Small Talk, Work, Play, Build.
Please like, share, subscribe on any platform that you use.
Hi, welcome to Small Talk Work Play Build. We start a new season, and here's our first episode. And there's just so much masculine fodder for us to talk about, Hasita.
It's almost as though if we were sitting on the fence about restarting this, well, we have enough reason not to.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. So we were, backstage, if you could call it, we were talking about what does the workplace look like
Yeah.
as we enter 2025. And while we started maybe optimistically, like every new year starts, it does feel like two steps forward and suddenly one huge step back
Hmm.
with so much conversation and just, you know, impulsive action
Yeah.
in the DEI space. Now, we are not DEI experts in any way, but we have our lived experience
Yeah.
as women at the workplace.
Yeah.
And we've heard enough stories and narratives, and I think there's a lot to chew upon here.
Yeah. Quite a bit also because one person's idea of masculine energy at the workplace should not be
Hmm.
representative of all the good work that has been done by sponsors of all genders for
Yes,
many, many years at the workplace.
right.
What we see as a diversity and inclusion program or an environment today is the product of decades of crusading almost and action and support, both loud and quiet, which has brought us to this place. And what we are trying to do today is to have empathy for that first and foremost, and not let the media circus carry us away.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's important because it got me thinking about where did this narrative or this language even start in my head? And I think for many of us, maybe especially of my generation and youngsters also, but it started with Sheryl Sandberg's 2010 talk,
Yeah.
the famous TED talk, right? And we all really resonated with her takeaways. And I know that after that, in my, let's say, second innings of running women's development programs, those have been the backbone of many such programs. And she said, hey, sit at the table, right? Step up. And it felt so like so seen
Hmm.
because so many times I have walked into a corporate meeting room and said, okay, there's a set of chairs around the table, but there's also that outer row. Can you go and sit there?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when she says, hey, sit at the table, you feel like, oh, she's talking to me.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
should
No, there's
now,
almost that permission to
correct,
kind of
right? It
show
was the
up.
permission we all
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
And then she said, find a partner who's a real partner.
Hmm.
And there's a bit of luck element in that, I must concede. And both of us have been lucky. Uh, but also, saying lucky diminishes the effort the
That you
partner is
have
putting
put.
in and that you are putting in.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And she said, don't leave before you leave. And that's something that, as a people manager, it's been very important to remind young women at the workplace, right? That they would come up to you and say, I'm getting married 6 months from now, so maybe I shouldn't take this transfer, right?
Yeah.
And you'd say, hey, don't leave before you leave, right? Whether it's maternity, marriage, elder care, child care, when it comes, we'll
It'll
figure it
happen.
out.
Yeah.
But don't preempt things 6 months in advance and say no to things. And I think these three messages of us really resonated with so many of us. We bought Lean In, we read it cover to cover. It wasn't an easy book to digest because it was asking a lot
Yeah. Yeah.
of women, right?
And it
To
needed that certain amount of community. I think it was not a book that you could read in isolation.
yeah, yeah,
It was encouraging, it was galvanizing a certain amount of action, which is why, I mean, like, what a world to have arrived in 15 years later, where the same company where she was perceived as the adult in the room,
hmm.
in most instances, if not all, our man goes on a podcast and says, we need more masculine energy at the workplace. And I'm really trying to keep a straight face while I say that
Yeah,
because he did.
yeah,
And then he goes back and announces that he will be rolling back a lot of the diversity initiatives at
yeah,
Meta,
yeah.
which, by the way, Facebook as a platform has 3.6 billion active users every single day.
That's half the planet, right?
Yeah,
I mean, in yeah, it is.
pretty much. Even
Yeah,
if you say, people have multiple accounts,
yeah,
it's still
yeah,
quite a lot of us.
yeah.
And to think that And I have to get this out of my system. To think that this man who started the Facebook as a way to rank
Women.
the looks of women on campus, real people that he's seeing on a daily basis. And someone stepped in and said, no, you can't run a banana republic.
Yeah.
And then that someone left, and suddenly you pander to a new god.
I think, we can say that, oh, that's happening in a land far, far away, but it's not, right? It's one we are totally so intertwined in, and everything that happens everywhere is a message to all of us in a way, and it reaches us that quickly also,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So whatever, a rollback of DEI in a few companies somewhere, but those companies exist here. Those platforms are what we are on. Those people, those employees, those users, they're all our community too,
yeah, yeah.
right? So I think that's what's bugging us. That when we talk now of DEI, suddenly you have senior leaders in India saying, "Why aren't you working 70 hours? Oh, no, 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 70 is not enough. Why not 90?
Hmm, hmm.
And why do you need a Sunday?" And it's like, hey, what you say matters.
Yeah. While also being reasonably blind to the privilege of being able to do that, no? For
Mm,
you to show up and work for 90 hours a week, someone else is doing something that
mm,
you've invisibilized,
mm,
if that's even a word, with a very active statement kind of directed at the other gender, which I think was really what was not appreciated. And also, where do we understand this complex cultural mix of what it even means to have diversity at the workplace, right?
mm.
Like, we're not saying, or rather, I mean, think about this. You and I have both met a lot of men in our lives who've opened a lot of doors for us
Yeah.
professionally. And we have also met several men in the workplace who've shut the door in our faces. Why are we so excited to promote or discuss an idea of masculinity that just frankly seems fragile at best?
If not anything, every morning we're a meme fest, right? Like exchanging, what happened through the night almost. And I liked the one I saw this morning, which had the Gulf of Mexico renamed as the Gulf of Fragile Masculinity. And I think that's really what it is, a huge level of insecurity.
Yeah.
Um, but that doesn't excuse anyone. And you're right, the workplace isn't
The place
this.
for it, first of all. I mean, by all means, if you're being influenced by your own algorithm, go do it somewhere else. But to make decisions or to make statements that impact a vast number of people doing a vast amount of work, because this is how I hear it, right? You're telling me that on all those days when I went into a room and I never noticed whether the person on the other side is a guy or a girl. I just did my work, they did their work, and together we produced something beautiful. Today, you're telling me that's not possible. That when I enter a room to do my work, I have to go there and I have to explain why I am the person who
Mm,
should be able to do that work.
mm,
You have given me that one additional task which I shouldn't have to perform. And that's the real sadness almost of the conversation today, that this is January of 2025, and we would think that we've made so many strides and so much progress
yeah,
on at least the most basic things
yeah,
that should be a given at the
yeah.
workplace, and instead we are arguing gender rights.
Yeah, like you said, it's been decades of working, chipping away at this, and still we have, in India, such a huge opportunity for women women to be a part of the workforce. Right?
Yeah.
There are, numbers of billions quoted as what would be added to the GDP if we had more women joining the workforce.
Or
There
even
is
just fewer women leaving.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
that too.
Correct, correct. So once you get to senior levels, it's still at about 18% of the workforce, which is one in five, right?
Slightly lesser, in
Yeah,
fact. Yeah, yeah.
that's just in 2025. And even with mandates like one woman on every board, um, a lot of it is in letter, not in spirit. So, you're not really seeing the impact of it yet. But I think that's what it is. It's like some days you'll move inches, some days you'll move miles, but hopefully you'll always move forward.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes that's what we begin to question.
Yeah. These statements that some of these men are putting out, it's chipping away at years of effort.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. And I think what was sad for both of us is that we didn't hear anything from Sheryl Sandberg.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe in some ways that silence itself speaks
Yeah,
very
maybe.
loudly.
Maybe. I
Um,
mean, we appreciate, I don't know, like, Michelle Obama saying, I will not attend.
yeah. Yeah. Even Dr. Jill Biden with the bag on her shoulder, I thought that was quite a statement.
And what was that statement? That I'm ready to leave?
I'm just dropping in
Uh,
because I have to. We do a lot of that. Yeah. Quite an
yeah.
interesting, I mean, at the highest political office.
You're still playing the games of kids.
And that is the workplace for you.
Yeah.
But hopefully that's not all. And
No,
there's
no,
some good
definitely
stuff.
not. I think, like you said, we have enjoyed meaningful career stints and meaningful work opportunities because of the men and women who've made that
Opened many,
happen,
many
right?
doors for us, for
Many
sure.
doors. And
Yeah.
I think, my kind of 15-year stint at corporate was as thrilling and enjoyable a ride. I mean, with its ups and downs, because of bosses, men who said, hey, you deserve this,
Yeah.
or hey, what support do you need, right? And I think I've told these stories earlier, but I've had wonderfully supportive bosses who, I went up to them and said, hey, from tomorrow I need to be working from home
Mm.
because this is a pregnancy that needs bed rest. I said, yes, go ahead,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I've had bosses to whom I said, hey, you know, my support system at home is my mom. So I'm here 9 in the morning and I am out sharp 7. And he said, please pick up your bag and go every day.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? I
Hmm.
mean, that itself is a long work day. I don't deny. But nobody's questioned that.
Why not 8? Why not 9? Why can't you
When,
join us for
yeah,
drinks after? Why
yeah,
can't.
yeah,
Yeah.
right? And that's no, not only you were not penalized for it,
Hmm.
they know
It's
that
just what you did.
it's just what you did, and the hours that you were there, are they productive? That's the only thing that you're
Yeah.
judged on, your output, your performance, your effort when you are there.
Yeah.
You are not judged on the decisions that you have to make or the choices that you have to make otherwise, right? And, all of these supportive men, I think they are still a large part of the workplace.
Thankfully.
Yeah. And it's just what worries me. And sometimes I wonder, why is this worrying you so much? It's because there are young folks also
Yeah.
coming up the systems, and what are they hearing, right? What permissions are they being given or not being given?
Yeah.
Or, today we are in that age where um, we are choosing our idols based on what the algorithm shows
Pretty
us.
much. Pretty much. In fact, I refreshed my algorithm the other day and now
Huh.
it's the most boring thing I've seen. So clearly, it's populating based on the many different things that I do, the things that I click on. Also, again, that onus is falling on smaller and smaller units of family, smaller and
Mhm.
smaller units of the individual to then say, teach your sons better, teach your daughters better. I thought we were doing something about that, and to kind of not feel like it matters
Mhm.
is the bigger challenge here, because we are all people who have to exist in a very real world and hopefully collaborate and do a lot more.
Yeah.
So, can we not have to have the most basic of conversations before we
Yeah.
get down to work?
Yeah. I think that's really what the workplace of 2025. Okay, this has not been the greatest of starts,
Yeah.
but a lot of things are still, the heart is in the right place. I'm optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, at least there is now a level 0, and one would hope the only way is up. I say that with both fingers
Yeah,
on both
yeah,
hands crossed, but
yeah.
yeah.
So, what does it mean today? Like today, when you enter, you know, a client office or when you enter these meeting rooms, what does it mean for you in 2025? You think what would you like to see more of, and what have some of those challenges been?
That's an interesting question. I work in media, and in fact, my first sort of moment of reckoning with the idea of diversity was Me Too,
Hmm.
back in 2016. And it felt like you're allowed to talk about the things that kind of bothered you, but you didn't know
Mm, mm,
whether they were supposed to bother you. And here there is someone very actively giving you permission and saying, yes,
yeah.
your instinct was right, your gut was right. Um, I have been very, very fortunate and lucky even to have had a lot of allies across genders who've sort of held that safe space,
Mm,
because a lot of work we do is creative. We can't be creative in a space that doesn't feel safe. And fortunately, by design and by choice, since then, I mean, with the very high standards that these people have set for us,
mm,
we have, as a practice, refused to work in any environment that doesn't feel safe.
mm,
It is a very core value for us internally at Motley Crew. Now, of course, a lot of work we do is with the world outside. And again, it's been overall a very nice experience interacting with uh, men who don't seem as insecure as media is making them out to be. And it's been nice to have that kind of allyship almost,
mm,
where I have at least personally never felt that it's being pointed out to me that something is being asked of me because I'm a woman, or you're checking on me once more because you think I'm not competent enough. But I do know that there are multiple people who have those experiences. So I think if you're trying to be supportive, um just take gender out of the equation entirely, right? Like, there are no parallels even that you need to draw. I think we fall into this trap of saying, oh, but don't you have sons, don't you have daughters? It doesn't matter. I mean, that's
mm,
your life. However you're bringing them up is up to you. But
mm.
when you go to the workplace, you are one competent individual interacting with another equally competent individual in their own capacity. So just bear that in mind. Let's not make this a
Yeah,
conversation on anything but that,
yeah.
but the skill set that we are able to bring to the table.
No, I would agree. I think if I wanted to say, okay, what are the two things that you know I would want to tell my daughter as she enters corporate soon, um, is one to really be aware of and cognizant of your own value system, what's your kind of right and wrong.
Yeah.
Um, be willing to hear other sides, but I think once you are sure of your space, so to speak, right? And I think that guided me because while I was rising up the corporate ladder, so to speak, because I never received any favors for being the woman in the room, nor was I treated terribly for being the woman in the room.
Yeah.
That gender piece really went out of the equation quite easily.
Mhm.
And you're trying to look at the meritocracy of what's in front of you. So one is to be aware that hey, this is what is right by me. And when you're sure of that, then you can build the confidence to call out when you see things go wrong,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So even as a young manager, and again because of the safe space that these bosses, men and women, gave me, you were able to say, hey, don't penalize her for that 6 months she was away. That was a maternity break, not a holiday,
Yeah.
right? So let's find a fair way to evaluate the year for her, or let's not deny somebody an opportunity assuming that, oh, she's a new mom,
Hmm.
or assuming that, oh, she's come newly into the city. Let her make that decision, right?
Yeah.
So let's present it to the individual and let them say yes or no,
Yeah.
right? So the uh,
Agency is really what
correct,
you're,
correct. So I think one is to be aware of your own kind of right and wrong,
yeah. Yeah.
and then by your actions building up the confidence to more and more call out the wrong, because it doesn't come easily,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, as young managers in the workplace, it's not always easy to call out, right?
Yeah.
It's easy to say, hey, you should, but sometimes the situation, the circumstance, you don't know who to say to, what to say, and how to say this without having repercussions on yourself.
Which is the biggest thing that holds all of us back. And more, I think that onus of individual spokesmanship or advocacy is only growing. And this is true across the
Hmm.
board, right? Like, while we are talking about gender, any subject that you pick today, if you believe that it's the right thing, then one, it's a world where it demands to be said more and more. It's not a pleasant burden to shoulder, but then it needs to be done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, fortunately, there are enough channels and platforms to voice that out today. I
Yeah.
think it's the nuance again,
Correct.
which we
Correct.
hope
Correct.
um, is part of the
Yeah.
equation somehow.
So that's interesting what you said, that there are channels and platforms. So I think one, do it visibly when you can,
Yeah,
right? So when you see something go right, if LinkedIn is your platform, put it there. If you see something not right, put it there. And also do it when no one's watching,
yeah,
right? So kind of stay the course, because I think these inches by which we are moving ahead, they are going to keep adding up,
yeah. Hopefully,
hopefully,
as a
right?
collective.
Like I was telling you the other day, a simple interview panel
Hmm.
where I felt that my male panelist spent a little too much time on what how the interviewee would manage because of their marital status, etc. And you know I don't know, maybe the me 5-10 years ago may not have done it,
Hmm.
but at the end I said, hey, on behalf of the panel, I apologize, those questions should not have been posed to you, right?
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think do the little
Yeah.
things we can to call out. And the young lady said, no, no, it's okay. And I said, no, you should know it's not okay,
I think that's the bigger
right?
sort of, hopefully, that's the realization that which she also kind of took away from
Correct.
that.
Correct.
A lot of times it does happen, things that make us question, like we were discussing earlier, is this the right thing? Should it have happened this way? The very fact that we are asking that question means it shouldn't have happened that way in the first
Mm.
place. And I think as long as we can be aware,
Yeah.
conscious and cognizant of that, um, like I said, probably, hopefully, this is level zero, and we're only going to,
Yeah.
head on to better things.
But I think I liked what you said in the beginning, that it is a media circus.
Yeah.
So let's not
Let's
get
not
carried.
get, I mean, I don't know if we got carried away, that said. But I think inflammatory statements demand coherent responses,
Mm,
and it's important. Even if one person listens to this, I hope that you realize that there is permission to say something the way it is and not feel like, oh, I'm alone
mm,
in this.
mm.
Because there are a lot of people feeling the same way.
Yeah, yeah. And stay in the track that feels right for you.
Yeah.
Continue to,
Explore that moral compass.
yeah, yeah. Because definitely the complexities in the workplace, it's not getting easier, right? For the youngsters entering the workplace today, um, they bring in a way, I feel like they bring in a lot of baggage which we didn't, because we didn't carry our social profiles
Yeah.
with
And the
us.
history of everything
Yeah,
we
they
posted since the time we were 13 years old was not
correct.
part of the package.
Not only the history you posted, and before that probably your parents posted, like your first step and your first crawl, and
Yeah, true.
so
And
there's
had
a
managed accounts and all kinds of
correct,
things.
right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of baggage, good or bad, that you're walking into.
Yeah.
There's a kind of profile that you feel you need to fit,
Yeah.
and you need so it's not easy at all. And then there's the other end, those who are uh, mid-career onwards, struggling to figure out, hey, but this was not what I was taught, maybe, or this is not what I
Hmm.
saw, and that's okay. It can change, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
As many things, the workplace is going to change and
Yeah.
is going to evolve. So keep exploring that moral compass of
Yeah.
yours, and be ready to you also shift those inches.
Yeah. Which I think is really the sum total of that discomfort that some of these statements make us feel, is they're all telling us that in a world of uncertainty, be fearful
Hmm.
rather than curious.
Hmm.
But there is so much, I'm sure, that all of us could learn from each other, from the young upstart who's just graduated and who's exploring a career with a very starry eyed perspective. They have very strong opinions today. They're
Yeah,
not afraid to voice it.
yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, afraid is the wrong word. They've just grown up voicing it
Voicing,
in a world
yes.
that was bigger than their families. And it's not, they're no strangers to being able to do that. I think we could all learn something
Yeah,
from that.
yeah.
Likewise, obviously, experience always does add up. So, how you kind of, share that with the world, how you expand that circle
Hmm.
of influence is the real impact that someone in a slightly more senior role could potentially have.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we are more and more calling for. People will continue to have all kinds of opinions, some of them with more leverage than the others. but does not change the fact that we can all still continue to do what we think is right in our own small corners of the world.
Correct. I think we definitely, I mean, the fact that we as women have our careers, we're working, our daughters and sons will too. I mean, there has been a huge shift, right? A lot of what was not acceptable in previous generations is par for the course now. And we just have to stay the course, I think. And
Just be curious,
just be curious. Don't get
carried away.
carried away by this media circus. And it is a circus
I mean,
pandering
it's
to,
designed for that.
yeah, it's capitalism at its best. So I think what we're really saying is, do lean in,
Hmm.
also do lean out when it's too much,
Yeah.
right? But the workplace is something that should feel safe. It should feel meaningful. It should feel like it's a good reason to
Do
be
what you're
here.
doing.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
do what
Yeah.
you're doing. And a lot of it is on us as individuals. Call out the good, call out the bad. Try to make those small shifts where they need to happen, and hopefully progress.
Yeah. Maybe that's where the real work is,
Yeah.
even. And onward to more beautiful things.
Hope you enjoyed our first conversation at Small Talk. We hope to have you back as we banter about many things about how you work, how you play, and how you build. Do follow, like, subscribe, do the thing that will help us grow too. So, now on to our segment of Read, Watch, Listen. We thought we'd bring you one recommendation each every episode. It may be something that we've read, it may be something that we've watched or binged, and it may be just more of an audio podcast that we've enjoyed. So, my choice this week is The Burn Book by Kara Swisher. I really had heard nothing about her till maybe 6 months ago when someone recommended her podcast with another VC investor, tech millionaire, Scott Galloway, called Pivot. And they talk about all things tech and business. But this book is really her kind of chronicles of her being a tech journalist. I think she was one of the earliest from the 90s, had direct front row access to a lot of these, tech bros as they were building their companies. And she really calls it out, calls a spade, tells you what exactly happened, how, in the name of trying to build something glorious, a lot of them broke things along the way. I think it's a fascinating read of the tech world then and why it is the way it is now.
And I'm just thinking there's scope for a new and improved version now.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
6 months, she can keep updating
Yeah.
this.
She does
Yeah,
it
very
every
nice.
week on the podcast.
So my pick for this week is again The Breakfast for Champions, more books. It's called Dopamine Nation. The irony of me sharing this on a platform like YouTube, which will then be distributed on Instagram, is not lost. For what it's worth, the author herself went on multiple podcasts to promote this book. This is the world that we live in. And the headline says, "All the money in the world spent on feeling good." And I think that, I mean, this book actually made me put social media away for a full 2 weeks, and that's an achievement. And I'm probably going to reread this, and I highly, highly recommend it. It says the smartphone is the modern day hypodermic needle delivering digital dopamine 24/7 for a wired generation. I mean, compulsive overconsumption is a pretty accurate description of, or rather, a very gentle way of saying addiction. This is actually a very serious book on addiction and her studies with a lot of people that she's worked with and helped out of that phase of addiction. Very, very life changing in many different ways. It also made me think. I mean, sometimes you think of addiction as substance or a thing, but it's also patterns and thoughts. And how do you sort of, find that balance, as she says? Quite an amazing read and very well written.
I think very relevant because we're thinking that if TikTok is banned, then the world will end. Let's see.
Maybe.
So, on that note, see you guys next time. Don't forget to like, share, comment, say good things, give us a 5-star review, all of that, and we'll be back. Bye.